Morgan, thank you so much for being here again today.
Of course.
And today we're going to be continuing with this topic of the gifts of recovery at the holiday time. And Morgan, right before this, we were talking a little bit about how life is so different for you compared to what life was like when you were kind of in the thick of the eating disorder and the holiday times came around. And I bet you some people who are listening to this can completely relate. But I know those were not easy times, not easy moments, not easy holidays. Maybe it's not even easy to remember what that was like. But I think it is important to speak into like what that was like back then.
Yeah. And so when I think back to what my life was like around the holiday season in my active eating disorder, it was very difficult. It was really hard. I dreaded the holidays, which sounds so sad to me now thinking back, but I dreaded the holidays because I was afraid of what my family members would say, if they would comment on my body, if they would comment on the amount of food I was eating. I was dreading being around sweets and desserts, and I was dreading the comments that people would make on Thanksgiving, like, oh, I can't eat all day until I have the big meal. You know, it was just, everything was so triggering for me. And it's so sad that it was such a difficult time for me because it's so different now. But I think it just shows me how grateful I am for my recovery and that I pushed through and persevered even when I wanted to give up so many times.
Well, Morgan, thank you so much for sharing all of that, because I know kind of going back into that pain, it's not always the easiest thing. And like you said, it feels so sad, like thinking of that younger Morgan and what he was experiencing and not liking the holidays, just kind of wanting them to be over. And you mentioned something about like how hard it was to have like all the sweets around, which, you know, can be difficult for anybody, and particularly if you are dealing with an eating disorder. But what was hard about that? What do you remember?
Yeah, so for me, my struggles around food, I restricted and I binged. And so just being around sweets, I felt like I had no control. And at the same time, I would try, like I had that restrictive mindset. So I would go into the holidays saying, I'm not going to have any sweets, you know, and then sometimes I would end up binging on the sweets. Sometimes I would end up eating so many, like after everyone went home, like eating all the sweets and feeling so sick. Sometimes I wouldn't let myself eat them at all, and I would just be so sad. Like, they look so good. Like, I love sweets. I've always loved sweets. And so I think just that difficult relationship with food and sweets and feeling like I had no control, it was just really, really, really difficult.
Yeah.
And
so now we get to a little bit fast forward and look at what the gifts of recovery are at the holiday time. But like you said, all the work you have done on yourself through all this time to really get to such a different point. And I know you're somebody who really loves to celebrate, and you love the holidays. And I think now you even love baking. And I know that's one of your one of the things that just brings you so much joy. And so I would love to hear a little bit, like, what are some of the things you really worked on, Morgan, to then be able to really see the gifts of this holiday season versus like white knuckling it, I can't wait till it's over, and now like really embracing the spirit of the holiday?
Yeah, there are so many things that are coming to mind when you said that. So one of the things that I find really was a game changer for me was I had to set boundaries with family members. Specifically my grandma. She would always comment on my body, and not my body, but just like, I guess my body, like how I look so skinny or whatever. And it's like meant as a compliment, right? But when you're in recovery, it can be so triggering. And so I had to say to her, like, I know it's coming from a good place, but it just, any talk about my body is really not helpful for me in my recovery. So setting those boundaries with people was a big one. And then another big one was working on my relationship with food and breaking that binge restrict cycle. So that feeling of like, I always felt like I had no control over myself when it came to sweets. It wasn't true, because once I gave myself permission to eat the sweets, I didn't feel like when I had them in front of me, I needed to eat all of them, because I knew I could have them when I wanted, So it just became a much healthier relationship with food, a much healthier relationship with family, and I was able to be present, and that's how it is today. And it's just, I love the holidays, and you're right, I love baking cookies, I love eating cookies, and it's just so different.
Wow. Now, I know somebody hearing this might say, wait, she went from this and all of a sudden she went from this and it's like magic. And it wasn't magic. Like,
Right.
It was not magic. It didn't just like poof, the recovery fairies came and like, I wish it was like that, but no, it was not that. It took work to get to this point. It took putting yourself in therapy and coaching and programs and to really work on these things. And your family also really started learning how to support you differently. Yeah. So I wonder if you could say a little bit about like the treatment aspects that made a difference for you and for your family, because not everybody has a family that is willing, but a lot of people do. The families want to help. They want to know how to support. They just don't know how to do it. And so sometimes everybody's like, let's walk around this pink elephant and we want to help, but we're not sure what to do. And so people are a little bit like frozen. So I wonder if you could talk about that for yourself a little bit, but also how your family was able to support you, and particularly your parents. Hi, this is Dr. Jen. Subscribe to the Fab channel if you're interested in getting more videos, more tips, more strategies about how to get through your eating disorder recovery and to be living your joyful and fulfilling life.
Yeah. So for me personally, I had my little team. Like, I had my therapist, I had my nutritionist, I had my psychiatrist, and then something that I added was your previous group, Conscious Eating, which was like the missing piece, having a group of people that are all going through the same thing that we could share and realize, okay, I'm not the only one going through this. That was really a game changer for me. And I always say that, and I always will. So having my little team and being able to reach out to them if I was struggling, and just knowing that I wasn't alone, and having them call me on my shit.
It wasn't all like, right? Like roses and rainbows and like, yay, Morgan. Sometimes it was like the tough love that we need too.
Exactly. And there were so many times when I wanted to give up, to be like, I can't do this anymore. It's too hard. It was just very mentally exhausting for that period of time in my recovery. And I think it was my team that really helped me, my team and my family that helped me stay with it, and realize it's not about perfection. And it's like, recovery is not linear. So being able to communicate with my team that I wanted to give up and have them talk me through it. And then also having my family, which I'm so grateful for my family. And I think it's important to point out, like, family doesn't have to be blood, it could be just anybody in your circle that really wants to support you. And so I think my family being willing to learn how to help me and ask me, like, how can I support you? I don't know how to support you, so how can I? Even when I didn't know the answer, just having them ask me that and being there was huge.
That's awesome. So like you said, I love this idea that maybe your support or what you call family is not blood family.
Yeah.
It's those individuals who really can show up. And sometimes it was like you didn't even know what to tell them of how to support you, but just by them asking, like that willingness made a difference. And something that I say sometimes to clients and families is we figure out what does work by figuring out what doesn't work, right? Like food policing usually never works, right? Like that does not work. Maybe
No.
making it assumptions doesn't work, but really trying to ask the person directly can really work. I always say too to families is like maybe you want to have a family session before the holidays so you really can prepare. Right? Like I remember something you saying, Morgan, was strategically putting yourself around the table, maybe not near grandma, but near the more supportive people at the table was like very huge for you.
It really was, because then I could have just that emotional support of knowing someone's right next to me. And like, if I needed to get up from the table, I could just let them know, like, can you come with me for a sec? Or just saying like, I'll be right back, just having that. And it was typically my mom, that was next to me. And it was just a comfort, because a meal like Thanksgiving, a meal like Christmas, a meal like it can be really hard. So having those people next to you is important.
There's one other thing I want to say, Morgan, and I think we'll end on this question, but something that comes to mind that really made such a difference for you was in our conscious eating program, there was these different principles we would teach. And you said something a few minutes ago, which is recovery is not linear. It's not a straight line. Like you don't put yourself in treatment and all of a sudden it's just easy peasy, right? Like it's struggle. There's going to be twists, turns. You're going to want to give up. You're going to want to scream. You're going to want to say it's too hard. And sometimes you're going to get down on yourself, right? Like, why isn't this easier? And we can get perfectionistic then about our recovery, right? And I remember those words of lean into compassion was something so important for you. And I wonder if you can share why that mantra and that principle really was helpful for you when we did conscious eating.
Yeah, before you even said the principle, I knew which one you were talking about, because I talk about it so often, and I think it's, even to this day, it's my biggest mantra, it's my biggest affirmation, to lean into compassion. And so for me, that really looks like letting myself know if I mess up, if something doesn't go right, if I eat past the point of fullness one time, it's okay. Reminding myself it's going to be okay. I didn't fail recovery. I didn't take 10 steps back. I just acknowledge it, get back up, and keep going. So that's how it was really helpful for me in recovery. And even today, anytime I'm struggling with something, I just show myself compassion, which could look like a few different things. It could look like saying an affirmation. It could look like, if I'm having some poor body image, maybe placing my hands on that part of my body and just, sending it that energy. And it's a practice.
And I remember not too long ago, like a week ago, you were like, Dr. Jen, I'm taking a self-care day. And I was like, so impressed by that. Like, I was like, damn, Morgan, you really live your recovery every day.
Yeah.
And you inspire us, because after you did that, I was like, wow, like she really took the power of the pause and said, I have to come first. Like I have to fill my cup first so I can be there, right? For my clients, for our team, for my pets, for my partner, for my family, for my friends, like filling your cup first, like leaning into compassion for you and what you needed, which was to take a step back. And I think you even said, like, I just need to like commune with my higher self.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I did. And it was really just a day of showing myself compassion and giving myself what I needed. And I think it's so common for us to take a day off if we're feeling physically not well, but it's not common that it's socially acceptable to take a day off if you are having a poor mental health day, or I think I was having a poor body image day because I had wedding dress shopping coming up and all my stuff was coming back up. But yeah, taking that day completely reset me, and I was able to have the best time dress shopping and just feel good. And like I filled my cup.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Morgan, thank you so much. So
course.
beautiful. I feel very moved and touched in hearing your story, some of which I knew, but just hearing it again. And I hope this made a difference for those of you listening. And we just wish you a beautiful, beautiful holiday, and that you can lean into compassion no matter where you are on this journey, right? Because it is a process, it takes practice. And also remembering you do not have to do it alone. Like most people do not recover by themselves. So like you deserve to get the help to really walk your own journey, whatever that's going to look like, because everybody's path is very unique. So anything else you want to say, Morgan?
I think just have a happy holiday and don't forget to show yourself compassion each and every day.
Awesome.